marschiert Deutschland und hinter uns kommt Deutschland.
Germany, the birthplace of an inventive, artistic, and philosophical people, home to minds like Gutenberg, Goethe, Nietzsche, Marx, and Beethoven, played a pivotal role in the greatest war in human history. With its defeat in World War I in 1918, and especially under the conditions imposed by the Treaty of Versailles in 1919, the Germans harbored deep resentment, particularly toward the French, who demanded most of the penalties imposed on Germany to neutralize its power and prevent another war. Germany lost 13% of its territory, including the Alsace-Lorraine region, which was reincorporated into France. The German army was significantly reduced, and it was prohibited from investing in heavy weaponry. Additionally, Germany was obligated to compensate its adversaries with 20 billion German marks in gold at the time. Finally, Germany was deemed the primary culprit of World War I, prohibited from unifying with Austria, and excluded from the League of Nations, which created a rift in its diplomatic relations with the rest of Europe and the world. The post-war period, the destruction it caused, and food shortages were the first challenges faced by the German government and people in the years following the First World War. The 1920s were even harsher for the Germans, especially during the Great Depression, which left millions unemployed. It is in such moments of national difficulty and despair that extremist movements arise. Inspired by Soviet communism and Italian fascism, Germany developed its own form of fascism, rooted in pseudoscience advocating the superiority of an Aryan race, of which Germans were deemed a part. Thus emerged the National Socialist German Workers' Party, whose members became known as Nazis. In this context, in 1921, a peculiar figure assumed leadership of the party, Adolf Hitler, a man born in Austria who moved to Germany at the age of 24 and served in the German army during World War I. In 1923, Hitler attempted an unsuccessful coup d'état, which led to his imprisonment. While in prison, he wrote his book Mein Kampf, My Struggle, which propagated the idea of German superiority and anti-Semitism, blaming Jews for Germany's economic struggles. Released a year later, the book was published in 1925 and became widely popular among German readers. Hitler championed pan-Germanist ideas aimed at uniting German-speaking regions, as well as anti-communism opposing the Soviet Union. He also harshly criticized the Treaty of Versailles, particularly blaming France for the harsh sanctions imposed on Germany. As a result, Hitler gained significant popularity, which led to his election as Chancellor of Germany in January 1933 through democratic elections. Within months, his government, which initially followed a democratic constitution, began transforming into a dictatorship. In March 1933, Hitler received extraordinary powers from the German Congress, violating the constitution. Freedom of expression was banned, and even jokes about the Nazi government or Hitler were considered acts of treason. In 1934, Hitler declared himself the Führer, or supreme leader of the German nation. Through a mix of persuasion and terror, Hitler aligned all political leaders with Nazi ideals. He heavily invested in propaganda to influence the masses and particularly the youth. He also began rearming Germany's military and investing in heavy industry, creating new jobs. Subsequently, Hitler expanded German territory, annexing Austria through a popular referendum and later the Sudetenland in Czechoslovakia. These actions violated the Treaty of Versailles, but the tipping point came when Germany invaded Poland in September 1939, prompting France and Britain to declare war. Prior to the war, Hitler had formed military alliances with Mussolini's Italy, a regime that inspired him, and with Imperial Japan. He also signed a non-aggression pact with the Soviet Union, which he would soon break. Germany's military strength was evident at the start of the war, as it swiftly occupied territories like Poland, Denmark, Norway, Belgium, the Netherlands, Luxembourg, France, and Greece between 1939 and 1941. The most significant conquest was France's surrender, allowing Germany to focus its efforts on other adversaries. In June 1941, Operation Barbarossa began, with the Nazis invading the Soviet Union. Initial attacks were devastating, as the Soviet army was unprepared. Hitler aimed to conquer major Soviet cities within 2 months, but conflicts in Soviet territory would last nearly 3 years. The Battle of Stalingrad, 1942–1943, was a turning point, with the Germans suffering one of their worst defeats. This was due to unfamiliarity with the harsh terrain, the Red Army's resilience, and the unforgiving Russian winter, with temperatures reaching -40°C, conditions for which the Germans were unprepared. The U.S. entry into the war in 1941, following the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor, shifted the paradigm. Germany now faced the U.S. and Britain in the west and the Soviet Union in the east. The Axis alliance, composed of Germany, Italy, and Japan, weakened further with Italy's defeat in 1943. From 1944 onward, Allied forces liberated France and Italy, while Soviet forces advanced through Ukraine. Hitler's questionable military strategies and battlefield losses further sealed the Axis's fate. By 1945, Germany was in ruins, surrounded by enemy forces. Hitler committed suicide days before Germany's surrender in May 1945. Nazi leaders were neutralized by Allied forces, led by Britain, the US, France, and the Soviet Union. Germany emerged shattered from another world war, once again regarded as the primary instigator. This time, the war had gone far beyond territorial disputes, involving the systematic extermination of ethnic groups, particularly Jews, in horrifying concentration camps, a grim reality fully revealed only after the war's end. After the war, Germany was divided into 2 nations, West Germany, influenced by the capitalist bloc led by the US, Britain, and France, and East Germany, under the socialist bloc led by the Soviets. This division lasted until the end of the Cold War in 1990. The events of World War II left an indelible mark on Germany's memory. Ashamed of the racist atrocities committed under the Nazi regime, the country invested in memorials, films, and books to reflect on this dark period and honor the victims, with the ultimate goal of ensuring such horrors never happen again.